Let's pray. God, awesome words. I surrender. Giving up, letting go, trusting you. Not leaning on our own understanding, but in all of our ways, acknowledging you and you promise to lead us. God, we're in here today at all different stages in our life, but we have one thing in common. We were created by you, made to be loved by you, given the opportunity to choose to love you back. And then, God, for those who do and those who have, you promised we would be with you in heaven forever and ever. God, that's the good part. We have to live out that faith and that love and that trust in an everyday process here on earth. Sometimes we struggle with doing that, but you promised if we surrendered, you would lead us. You promised if we let go, we would learn more about you. So God, my prayer this morning is that each one of us in this room would let go, the next step of letting go, that we would surrender and we would say, God, I'm not content to know what I know about you. I want to know more. God, I need wisdom as I speak this morning. I need the ability to bathe everything I say in love. I'm asking for each person here that they would receive from you exactly what you would have. Pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you. You may be seated. If you're visiting with us, my name is Sal. I'm one of the pastors here. Worship team, thank you very much. That was an absolute awesome opportunity to refocus on who God is. We're in this series called ReEngage. Last week we talked about re-engaging with God, reconnecting with the reality that there's a God and we're not him. Reconnecting with the reality that he loves us unconditionally, and that when we understand and grow in that love, it changes the way we live and it changes the way we love others. This morning, we're going to walk down a series regarding re-engaging in our marriages, re-engaging in our families. Some of you may be single. Some of you may be single again. And you're saying, great, this doesn't apply to me. Fact of the matter is, you may be in a place where there may be a marriage in your future. There may be a family in your future. And so many of us who are married wish we knew more before we got married because it would have changed the beginning stages of our marriage. Or maybe it's a situation where you have friends, you have family members, and you have the power of influence. So I'm asking, if you are single here, please do not check out. But embrace the information. Ask God to do something with it. And then if that time comes that you can use it personally, or if that time comes that you can share it with someone else, I ask that you be sensitive to the Spirit. Human beings were designed by God for deep companionship with other humans. I'm a loner. I'm an introvert. I don't. Ultimately, we have different gifts and abilities. We have different personalities. Regardless of our personality, we were made to be connected to other human beings. In relationship to the marriage relationship, we have to understand that marriage matters because it was designed by God. It was God's idea. It was God's idea. And some may have a very successful marriage, others may not. Others may have had heartbreak and pain because of a divorce. And today, in the midst of this message, I believe there's healing and hope wherever you are. Wherever you are. Then the Lord said, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make him a companion who is just right for him. A companion who is just right for him. What I want to do is get some help up here because I don't bend like I used to and I make too many grunts and groans when I get up. Courtney over here is going to help make me a nice circle. Here you go. I'll let you hold it. It's easier that way. Because I want to use the circle. Because we live in a culture where marriage is really not viewed as something that God ordains. It's viewed as an optional form of lifestyle. And what I want us to do is embrace the fact that God in his word gave us as individuals a clearly defined path, not of right and wrong, but a clearly defined path that leads us to right and wrong, but ultimately that allows us to see the goodness of his intention for our lives. Allows us to see how he wants to lead and guide us and protect us. That's perfect. And what happens is, thank you, Courtney, let's pretend for now that this is a set of boundaries that God established. And when we live inside of these boundaries, we experience his blessing. We experience the fulfillment of who we are and who we were created to be. It's not always easy to live inside of these boundaries, because living inside of the boundaries that God established for us means that we have to choose to do his will, not our will. So God designed marriage so that two people, man and woman, could come together and enjoy the beauty of a relationship that looks very similar to a relationship with his son, Jesus Christ, and him. But we live in a culture where there is brokenness, there's heartache, there's pain, there's self-will, there's immorality. And what I want to do today is I want to walk us on a journey, especially if you're not married, if you're young, to understand that God has something so big and so great for you that to give in to living outside of those boundaries causes heartache and pain. And many of us who are older know that firsthand, because we lived many years outside the boundaries of what God wanted for us, and we had to learn how to step back in and say, God, I surrender. God, I want more of you and less of me. And that's a difficult thing. It actually has to take place daily. Because some of us may have certain areas in our life where we live in those boundaries, but there may be other areas. So marriage is important because God designed it. Why does that matter? That matters because God designed it. God designed it. God made male and female from the beginning of creation. This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. Ultimately, the sexual relationship was made to be enjoyed, to bring about a family, for the union and connection between two people within the bounds of what he says is biblically right, which is marriage between a man and woman. And so often as young people, we see so much in culture, we experience the physical process of our bodies changing, and we want to express ourselves in a way that we think is acceptable. So many individuals choose to engage in a relationship with another person outside the bounds of marriage. And in reality, they're actually hurting themselves. Because in the end, it doesn't bring the fulfillment. It doesn't bring the satisfaction. It brings a brokenness, an emptiness, a tear in a relationship. And honestly, parents, and those individuals who maybe have lived outside the parameters that God set, we need to hear from you. We need you to share your stories with your kids and explain how maybe the most tantalizing, exciting thing you thought would ever happen was just about to happen, then happened. And you found out by looking back or immediately feeling the guilt and the shame and the brokenness of that relationship. So the goal today is give parents and families, husbands and wives and children the tools to make right choices on the journey. Because in relationship to family, it's better to train children than to fix an adult. And when we give our children the right tools, and then they choose to follow God with those tools, maybe their life turns in the direction to following him. So again, God has given us marriage. God has given us sexual expression for enjoyment, for the reproduction of families. And what we need to recognize is that anything outside the way God said it should be isn't, I'm going to get a slap on the hand. It's a reality that we've chosen to say to him, my way's better than your way. And then, at some point on our journey, my prayer is that we would come to that place of realizing how stupid, ignorant, and selfish we were, and how wrong we were. So, We don't have to learn it the hard way. We can do it the right way from the beginning. So why does marriage matter? Why does sex matter? Why does family matter? Because God designed family. Then God blessed them and said, and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. Fill the earth and govern it. Now, I fully understand that we have families that are broken. I understand some of you may not have had a mom and a dad. Maybe you were adopted. Maybe it was a broken home, and you haven't seen some of these things. So what we're trying to do as a church in this community is to give the tools for individuals who maybe have a good setting or individuals who haven't had a good setting, so that you can begin to understand the way God thinks about you, the way God thinks for you in regards to what you should be doing, and then how you can follow him. So today in this room, we have individuals who are married, and the health of their marriage, the health of your marriage, may be top-notch number 10. Maybe the health of your marriage is a 1, -5, a 5. But I believe wholeheartedly, wherever we are, we can take the next step in growing together. See, the family is the primary place where we learn about God's love. Yes, it's revealed in his word, it's in the Bible. But ultimately, when we get together with a family who understands what the Bible is for, not a bunch of rules and regulations, but the heart of God saying, hey, I created you. I made you. I got the recipe so that you will be everything that I intended you to be. And you can walk and you can talk and you can go on this journey with me. But sometimes we say, I don't like your way. I don't want to do it your way. You're restricting my freedom. That's so closed-minded. That's so old-fashioned. And God is saying, use the family as a place to show people who I am, to show your children who I am, to show your wife who I am. Because so often, we think the church is the primary place. It's not. The church is a place where we get together to worship God. It's a place where we get together to maybe hang out and fellowship with each other. It's a place where we get together to learn new things. It's a place where we connect to pray. But ultimately, the home is the place where the principles of God should be emanating from. But if they're not, and if you're in a family situation or a broken family, then we as a church want to come alongside of you and be the family you need. But if you got a mom and dad in the house, the mom and dad, it might be time to step up to the plate differently. It might be time to understand that there's only a few short years where we get to mold these beautiful things called children, where we get to enjoy the relationship with a husband and wife. And I want to give you some tools today to maybe help us better understand that. So this circle kind of represents all the beauty and blessing of being human, being loved by God, experiencing marriage the way he says we should, experiencing a sexual relationship the way he said we should, experiencing the beauty of a family connecting together the way he said we should. Answer that question if you would. When you and your spouse don't have to be together, do you want to be together? Right? When your family doesn't have to be together, do they want to be together? This one's locked in this room, this one's locked in this room. We're going on family vacation. Do I have to? And there's a bit of humor in this, but there isn't. Because it's interesting, we make kind of crass jokes in our home about who's changing whose depends in 20 years, but there's this beauty and this thought of growing old together. There's this awesome sense when the family wants to be together. So this morning, what I want to do is take us on a journey. I want to ask you these two questions. Do I have a disengaged marriage? Do I have a disengaged family? Are there areas that can be better than they are today? I'm sorry about that. So you got this family. Talk about mom and dad. Now, we all can't eat, drink, sleep together continually because that's called enmeshment. That's unhealthy. We all have individual personalities, likes, desires, dreams, but we all emanate from the same place called the family. So instead of all of us going in our own direction, there has to be something that holds us together, and it's not just the fact that we have the same last name. There has to be something bigger that holds us together. And we need to do an honest evaluation of our marriage and our family, because when we do, it leads to a more rapid process of getting healthy if we want to be healthy. Do you want to be healthy? Because some of us would say, you know what? I'm in. I'll do whatever it takes to better understand my marriage, to better understand my God so I can understand my spouse. I will do whatever it takes to connect with my family, my children in a different way, to lead them differently. Or maybe you're at that place, I tried for 26 and a half years and she ain't changed, so I'm out of here. I'm not going anywhere because I can't afford to. We're just going to live separate lives in the same house, or vice versa. Yeah, I love my spouse. I'm just not in love with them anymore. No, we're not going to get divorced, but he does his thing, I do my thing. And when we embrace that, it has become the norm, unfortunately, in culture for a married couple to grow apart instead of together. And sometimes it's not even because each other don't like each other. It's just because we got a bunch of kiddies in the middle, we got work, we got bills, we got this, we got that. And we need to reevaluate and say, whoa, kids passing through, spouse forever. You the primary, you secondary. Well, you God primary, you secondary, you tertiary, you third. And when the kids come to that place of understanding that they're there for a temporary amount of time to be trained and led and to be released with a no backsies card, there's a different concept in raising the family in the health that emanates. So I want to ask you, do you want the tools necessary to take the next step in your marriage, or have you given up? Do you want to see if your family dynamic can change? Because I believe wholeheartedly when Christ is the center, life changes. And Christ in the center doesn't mean, well, I brought my kids to church. That's not it. Church don't do nothing if there's not something absorbed through the Holy Spirit and modeled by those driving them to church. It may give information, but the fact of the matter is each individual has to have a relationship with the God of the universe through Jesus Christ. And when that relationship is so real, it impacts the entire family around them. So if you want to choose to begin the process of re-engaging, the first step is we need to re-engage with our spouse. We need to be able to have that uncomfortable stare in the eyes. Say, you know, when I married you, right? We need to have that. We need to reconnect. We need to re-engage. And who's kidding who? There are some awkward conversations between husband and wife to this day, because the vulnerability and the openness may have been squashed or never was there. And incrementally, we have these conversations, but we don't have these conversations. And I'm not talking about deep conversations. I'm talking about personal, emotional, companion conversations. I don't care. Texas Roadhouse, Red Robin, not those conversations. As the scriptures say, a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife and moves in their basement. No, and it is joined to his wife. And the two are united into, this is a great, thank you, but it's an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. If you don't grow in your understanding of the church and Christ, you are limiting your understanding of the health that could be had in your marriage. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself. Honey, I bought you a new tree stand. No, each man must love his wife as he loves himself. And the wife must respect her husband. Understand this. There are enough resources available to every person in this room for every stage of life you're in to give you information, to change the way you think, to open your heart to the Spirit's leading and direction, to repent, and then to make the right steps moving forward. So again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and a wife must respect her husband. Must respect her husband. It's called the love and respect cycle. Love and respect cycle. When I feel respected by my wife, it's very easy for me to love her. When I feel she doesn't trust me, when I feel that there's a level of disrespect, it's very difficult for me to then give love. And this is a common cycle. Most men, 83%, would say, when they don't feel respected, they're not going to give love. And women say, 73% of them, when I don't feel loved, I don't give respect. And it gets into this ugly cycle of a lack of love, a lack of respect, or love, respect, woohoo, that's where the sex part comes in. Anyway, but I mean, it's something beautiful that God created. It's something beautiful. When the unloved disrespect cycle takes place, there's great heartache and pain in a marriage. Because the less I feel respected, the less I'm going to love. And there almost becomes this lashing out and a brokenness. And again, we're just touching the mountain peaks. There's an individual, his name is Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. And he has a series called Love and Respect. If you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. If you're not married, I would encourage you to read it. Because unfortunately, so many individuals could have prevented a lot of heartache and pain if they knew something more and if they submitted to this circle prior to getting married. Prior to getting married. Questions you can ask your spouse to help evaluate your marriage. So, you were given a piece of yellow paper. If you're married or single, I would encourage you to fill this out. If you need one, raise your hand and our people will hand them out. Husbands and wives, if you go home today and the yellow piece of paper is empty and your spouse didn't fill it out, that tells you how interested they are. No, just kidding. So, we all can implement tools to change the condition of our marriage. So the awkwardness of life is this. The questions that you will ask your spouse will bring you to a place of vulnerability, will bring you to a place of discomfort most likely. But these are the questions that need to be asked. How can I be a better spouse to you? How long until you die? No, just kidding. How can I be a better spouse to you? Have I seemed uninterested in anything important to you? What is the one thing you need from me? And now you're going to say, I don't have time to write these down. I get it. We'll make them available. But see if something stands out. What have I done recently that really encouraged you or made you feel loved? Do I argue fairly? Or else you can be like Jaina and just take a picture of the screen, which I didn't think of. Here's what's interesting. I live in a home where I'm treated like a king, honestly. And at times I take advantage of that. I have a wife who loves me unconditionally. It's not perfect marriage by any means. She's put up with a lot of crud over the years. But the most beautiful thing is when you become so sensitive to each other that you want to meet each other's needs, not because you have to, but because you want to. And meeting each other's needs may look like a loaf of multi-grain bread and a half a gallon of almond milk. Because in the back of your mind, you know that's probably something that needs to be brought in. So during the course of life, I am asking you, during the course of your marriage, moms and dads to get together differently because the casualty rate of our children not understanding what it means to have a family that understands God's love, God's grace, God's principles is growing. What do you think about the way we spend time together? Could it be better? I always loved motorhomes. Always wanted to live in a motorhome. She knew what she was getting when she married me because when we were dating, I would always drive through motorhome lots. Finally, she said, I'd like to go to a craft fair. I said, you can go. Then I learned how to be patient and understanding. And when she looks at something and says, yeah, that's nice, to try to engage in what she's interested in. How could it be better? What would be one thing you wish I would start doing? What do you wish I would stop doing? What do you wish I would say to you more often and stop saying to you? In what areas of our marriage do you trust me the most? What areas do you trust me the least? If we don't choose to implement some different thinking, some different relationship techniques, a better understanding of God's purpose for marriage, then we'll walk out the door today saying, yeah, that was pretty good, but things won't change. The most beautiful thing has been the uncomfortableness of this stage of our life as a couple, because we're empty nesters. Getting that next stage of understanding how not to be selfish, how to grow together, how to understand the deeper conversations. You want to spend time together? Sure, Dina, I want to spend time. Do you want to watch Netflix or Amazon? No, that's not what I meant. I meant we're in the same room. That's not together. On a scale of 1 to 10, am I a good listener? How well do I understand you? Do you feel I support you with the kids in front of the kids? Do I compliment you enough? Do I criticize you too much? Do you feel free to be yourself? How do you know I love you? How do you know I love you? Remember, saying the right thing and living the right thing are two different things. There's a relationship that God designed, and when we follow his design for that relationship, there's a fulfillment and enjoyment and a hope that nothing can surpass. And as we try to present that to our 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, as they see something that mom and dad have that's totally whacked and weird because they enjoy each other, they're kissing and they're hugging and they're going out together, and they're not allowing us to run the house. They're leading the house. They're not allowing us to get in the middle of them. It influences your kids to understand the power of a healthy marital relationship. There's a book out there called Love and Respect. The love she most desires, the respect he desperately needs. So that's where we end on this little topic today. I would encourage you to pick up a book. I would encourage you to read Ephesians chapter 5, understanding how a husband and wife interact. And then if necessary, I would encourage you to find a couple maybe a little further down the road who has a relationship that you see some attributes that you would like to have in yours. The bottom line is, if there isn't an internal drive to grow in a deeper level of oneness with your spouse, then you need to go before God and say, God, I need your help. Something has died, something is flat, and I want to re-engage in my marriage. Now, that's for any age. That's if you're not married. That's for if you're married. That's for if you're old and knocking at heaven's door. I mean, that's anywhere in there, things can change. Things can change. When you and your spouse have to be together, do you want to be together? I know that many of us have our spouse in our heart. Many of us need to put our spouse on our calendar. There needs to be a little thing penciled in that says, okay, I'm spending this time with you uninterrupted. And that's where the health of a relationship can begin to grow. Can begin to grow. When your family doesn't have to be together, do they want to be together? Do your kids like you? Do your kids enjoy being with you? At 6, 7, 5, 4, they might. 9, 10, who knows? 11, 12, it's like a roll of the dice. But I would disagree with that. I believe there's something that's built at the younger ages that allows the family not to be unhealthily connected, but to grow together in such a way where each child gets to live out their freedom and their individuality and to follow God, but they desire to be connected to the family of origin because they still have a love for each other. Do I have a disengaged marriage? Do I have a disengaged family? Oops. When dad and mom are connected in a healthy way to the God of the universe, it changes the way your family lives. It changes the way your children see life. It changes what your children think they need. Daddy's out there with little girls. Hold that little girl, love that little girl, hug that little girl, tell that little girl she's beautiful. At a young age, let that little girl know that there's somebody out there. There's somebody out there who may not want her to see all that God has for her, but may just want her. Teach her that she has something that's so precious that is a gift from God. Young ladies out there, I would encourage you. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, unmarried. Never give your body away to a man until you stand on a stage or you stand in a meadow or you stand someplace and you make a commitment to that person and you say, God, today I commit to so-and-so for the rest of my life. May we bring you glory as a couple. May we have some good sex. And God, may we have a family that brings you glory as well. Because that's where it was designed to be. Young men in this room, listen carefully. We live in a culture that tells us to get what we want. I want to warn you. If you're a single young man, you have no right to touch God's daughter. Well, she's 22, I'm 25, it doesn't matter. God's daughter. I'm 18, she's 50, doesn't matter. She wanted, no. She doesn't know what God wants her to know. And if you're hearing me today, you know. So, choose to begin the process of re-engaging with your kids. What is it like to have those conversations with your kids? Start children off in the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Now, this is a principle in Proverbs. This is not a promise. Give your kids the tools, and when they see the genuineness of the tools that you're given in your life, they're going to believe that there's something of value, and they're going to take that information and say, wow, my dad spends his money like this. My dad treats my mom like this. My dad treats us like this. My dad said that I should keep my body holy and pure. It worked out pretty good for him. I want what they have. Same verse, 3 different versions. Direct your children onto the right path. And when they're older, they will not leave it. Again, not a promise, just a principle. Teach your children how they should live, and they will remember it all of their life. Any stupid people in here like me? Where your parents taught you what was right, and instead of choosing to do it, you chose not to, but you remembered what they had said and you came back to it? My prayer is that we will not have to separate from following what's right, but we would walk in it. We would remain in that circle. So, questions you can ask your child to evaluate where your relationship needs improvement and where it's thriving. So what are some questions we can ask our kids? Get out a piece of paper and a pencil and start writing. How do you know I love you? You go to work every day. You buy me socks and underwears. What would you say? Would you say I'm bad, okay, or a good listener when you talk to me? You don't even hear what I have to say. You already know what you want to say to me, and you're just waiting for me to take a breath so you can jump down my throat. I can't even express how I'm feeling, even if my feelings are wrong. Every time I try to talk, you're constantly trying to correct and direct instead of hear me and then let me believe that you heard me. Do I make your mom and dad happy or sad? So, Sal, do I make mom happy or sad? Husbands, ask your kid, do I make your mom happy? Do we fight too much? Do we fight too much? Fighting has become the norm. Most children grow up in homes that are consumed with conflict between mom and dad. That is not a judgment. It's a statistical fact. I can get you the numbers. They're in my office. What are some areas where I can improve as your dad? How can I be a better dad to you? You're awful impatient. What are the things that your children would say to you? Have you ever had that awkward conversation where you look your child in the eye? It's kind of weird because I've never talked to my kid like that. I mean, I haven't said goo goo gaga since they were 4 and 5 and 3. How often do we spend time together? Again, does your child want to spend time with you? Do you wish we spent more time together? Do we wish we spent more time together? Son, daughter? Would you say I'm better at giving you compliments or at criticizing you? Am I fair when I discipline you? And as parents, we really need to understand what discipline is. We need to understand how to guide our children with hope. How often do I hug you? Do I hug you enough? On a scale of 1 to 10, do I do a good job getting to know your friends? Are you kidding? I'm so embarrassed of you. I don't want you to know my friends. Do you trust me in everything? Have I broken any promises to you? If so, which ones? Do I treat you and your brothers and my favorite child equally? And your sisters equally? What's the most fun thing we've ever done together? What is one thing you wish I would stop doing? What is one thing you would like me to keep doing? What things would you like to learn from me that I have not taught you? If you could change our relationship in any way, how would you? And again, open conversation with a child. Awkward. Doesn't it sound awkward to have these conversations? Most of the times it's like trying to pull out of that kid the information. Now, don't give them all 20 questions in one sitting. Pick one question. Say, God, here's the deal. I believe you want me to re-engage in a relationship with my kids differently. So give me the question to start with and the opportunity to see when I need to ask that question. Have I helped you over the last couple of months? How can I help you more? What do you want from me most? What do you wish I would say more often? How do you want me to show you that I love you? It's interesting, there's a book. It's called The Word of God. It talks about parents not provoking their children. It talks about parents leading their children. And children are never told, you're never told in the Bible to love your parents. Just so you know that. You're told to respect your parents. Sometimes when parents don't feel respected, they give conditional love to their kids because their kids are kind of maybe possibly obnoxious at times. But the cycle that you saw in your marriage is the same cycle that happens in a family relationship. I think Dr. Eggerichs has some good information here. He talked to his kids and asked them questions about the things that he felt he did wrong. And out of the 3 of his children, most of the children did not agree with him in regards to what he did wrong when he was raising them. But he was totally taken back when each one of the kids shared something he didn't realize it hurt them. God redeems. Kids are resilient for a short period of time. Then they become resentful. So we have an opportunity to build the next level of a relationship with our spouse that changes the way our family interacts. And we have the next opportunity, another opportunity to change our relationship with our kids, which will most likely influence the way they see life in their future. To begin the process of re-engaging, the third step is we need to re-engage as a family. And we're going to pick up next week there. You struggle at times how vulnerable to be in these situations. I came from a home where mom and dad loved me unconditionally. They really did. I had a lot of my own issues because I refused to submit. I refused to respect. I was so insecure. I made stupid choices. When my son was born, the beginning stages of my marriage, significant, rotten, evil anger issues. So to this day, I would think that because of who I was in the beginning stage, my son would want nothing to do with me. But what happens is God has given us time to alter and to rebuild and to correct some of those relationships. So we can honestly sit down or maybe write a letter or have that conversation saying, I am so sorry for. It was my own brokenness that hurt you. And then to watch that child redevelop in a relationship because there's a credibility now. It's not just what you say, but it's how you live. And the most exciting thing that I have been blessed with as a dad is a God who redeemed the ugliness of my son's early years because of me. And I would encourage you wherever you're at and whatever stage of life you're in, don't take for granted your relationship and don't think that your relationship is where it needs to be. Because every relationship can take the next step. In your marriage, you need to start with prayer. You need to get down on your hands and knees and recognize that it's not the other person who needs to change. It's you who needs to see the other person differently. With your kids, it's not about getting them to obey you. It's not about fear parenting. It's not about directing them with anger and correction. It's about loving them in such a way that you hear where they're at so that they can express what they're thinking. And if their thinking is wrong, don't cram down their throat your right thinking. What you need to do is lead them on a path of understanding. How did you get to think that was okay? Let me show you some different options. Let me take you back to God's word. If you want to be well, all the tools to be well are out there, period. And the power of God, above all, always unites with a will that wants to follow his direction. So God, I've been living outside the circle in certain areas of my life, and we choose to step back in. It's going to be hard. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to start with my relationship with you, as we discussed last week. I'm going to start with my relationship with my spouse. And then the next step is, because of what's happening in the health of my relationship with my spouse, I'm going to begin that next level relationship with my children by incrementally finding out who they are. Well, they're my kids. Had a comment recently from a young man who said, my parents don't even know who I am. So I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to ask the worship team to come up this morning. And the only way that anything we have spoken about today is possible is through the power of God. Giving your child the tools to succeed on earth is important. Giving yourselves the credibility of the relationship to lead them is crucial. Husbands and wives, if you need to take a next step and you don't know where to start, contact the church office through email or phone, and we will connect you with people who can help you on that journey. Next week, we'll look at some different ways that we can take some more steps in deepening the relationship with our families. God, your word is true. In this room, many individuals are living proof of how you change lives and redirect the will, and then experience the fulfillment of that relationship. God, I do say thank you for your desire to take us on a journey that sometimes we don't want to surrender and give into. But God, you desire to draw, to lead, encourage, nudge, push us to the place where we can experience the fullness of our relationship with you. My prayer this morning is that each person here would have received from you something that causes them to want to take a next step on that journey with you. We thank you and praise you in your name for your love. Amen. God bless and have a beautiful Sunday.